like we were just saying with the so with the satellites going up, which is actually probably a good topic to move to, is obviously BlackSky, and that's supposed to be the Palantir but for space. For those who don't know, they're a satellite company that uses artificial intelligence and machine learning on its satellites for Earth observation. So essentially, in the easiest way to put it, it's like a webcam in space, and they just look down and they observe. They can observe anything. So they've got the private and they've got the public, and they're basically, they observe the world in near enough real time and detect, monitor global change. So that can range from anything. So that can range from like an insurance claim. So it can go as far as saying if someone had a parking ticket and they said that's not right, I wasn't parked there, they can monitor that and see if you were parked there. And that can also go all the way to just say there's a mass water pipe leak. They can see where that is and send the right people to it. And same with agricultural, for seeing if the crops are ready. So that's the public sector, and obviously with the private sector as well, they already have their contracts. So they've got multiple government agencies in the United States and around the world. And they highlighted in their presentation the US Army, the US Air Force, and several of the Ministry of Defenses around the world have contracts with them now. So their basically company has grown its pipeline to over 1.1 billion in the last sort of 12 months. I think this has ARK Invest all over.
Yeah. Well, just by calling it the Palantir of space, really, I think ARK Invest perk their ears up. But I mean, I was having a look at their revenue and financials, and obviously they were saying they had 22 million in 2020, 46 in 2021, 114 million in 2022. The most interesting thing is that they're split across 3 revenue streams. So similar to we've just seen, they're all sort of trying to diversify. So their main source is imagery, as you were talking about. Their second is data and analytics, and then engineering. But their key thing is the engineering. They're not just innovating in one area, they're innovating in 3. So even their engineering concepts and stuff can be used for machinery, military applications, things like that. So really, they seem to be sort of pioneering the way in a lot of fields at the moment, which obviously if you're ARK Invest, they're innovating in a high growth, high potential industry.
Yeah. They have 5 satellites already in commercial operation, and they plan to add another 9 in 2021. Again, it's the same with everything with space. It's there's 2 types of play. I think the merger date is around June. I could be wrong. So there's a little bit of time with this, but again, with the market being so red, as of sort of this week and the previous week just gone, I think it's a discounted stock hugely. For me, this is one of my favorite space stocks. That's it.
Yeah, agree. This is my number 1 space stock. If I had to back one out of the ones which were mentioned, it would be BlackSky. I think it really looks good. And obviously, even if they do make the ARK Space ETF, that will throw the price up even more, because so many people are influenced by whatever ARK do. Oh my God, I'll follow them. Obviously, they've got a proven track record, really. The most interesting thing about BlackSky is that they also own part of a satellite building company.
Yeah.
So they benefit hugely from not having to pay commercial rates for their satellites. So they estimate that they should be able to cut the costs by up to 90%, which I think really is a bit of a game changer. and we've seen, because BlackSky are already owned by a rideshare, it was a funny sort of rideshare business parent company, and they sold that business off to invest all the money back into BlackSky and really focus on BlackSky, and that's what their CEO has said that they're really doing. So I mean, I couldn't see them really selling out of that business if really it didn't have huge potential, or they must have something to be able to back it that much. I don't think the investors and the board would let them sell a solid revenue stream just to focus on something which has no sort of proof of concept or isn't clearly reliable and going to make it.
Yeah. With the satellites itself, obviously the stock we just previously spoke about, obviously with Astra, it'd be interesting to see their link and whether they get contracts through that or not. I'm not sure the weight of their satellites currently, but again, you know, that's their revenue estimates for me are is a little bit high, but having the US Army and the Air Force, just again, I think that's where a lot of the money is going to be made, is in the private stuff that we don't see.
Yeah.
The conflicting thing with that is people don't want to be watched, but you know, in this day and age, you know, it is just a standard thing.
Yeah.
And I can see, you know, mass, you know, whether it's agricultural or you know, with mass factories, to have that view on your actual factory, and if something goes wrong, not just only insurance, which is a massive deal at the moment. Obviously, you know, something does happen, but just to view it, you know, a simple thing to see if a crop is ready to harvest. You know, might sound so small, but the convenience there is huge. And same with the simple thing like insurance claims on cars, like I was just previously speaking about. I like this one, and I think in the near term, I think we will put a trade on it,
Yeah.
and see how this plays out.
Yeah. What was your opinion, Jordan, of the sort of software and tech behind it? Obviously, you're our resident tech expert.
Okay.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see sort of what you thought about what they were doing.
Well, I mean, obviously, I haven't closely looked into it.
From an outsider, if you heard what we've just said, what would you think of it?
I would think immediately, like you said, about privacy concerns of people. I mean, I don't think there would be massive pushback on something like this. I think you're right in the sense that, you know, it's going to eventually become normal and these things are eventually going to be acceptable. But I can see this being somewhat controversial. It's a bit of a headline grabber, I think. You know, look, we're watching you from space now, kind of thing. Yeah. And
certainly got Edward Snowden written all over it, really.
Yeah, I think where there's utility in some things, there's also some pretty scary elements for some people. Yeah, I mean, the tech looks good. I've looked into, you know, some of their technology partners and that sort of stuff. They're obviously operating with the latest and greatest. And I mean, I don't know much about space technology, like the actual equipment that they're using up there, but obviously it does have utility. It's just a question of, like, in order to achieve their goals, like, how many of these satellites do they need to deploy?
Yeah.
You know, what does that look like? Are they going to be, you know, operating thousands of satellites in space? Is there going to be potentially regulation in future to say you can't launch this many? Or
yeah,
I don't know if it's going to be a free market for long.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, the one thing which I wasn't overly impressed with is the fact they were saying they could get they're aiming for 23 satellites in orbit by 2023. Now, compared to a lot of the companies that we will speak about and we have spoken about, that doesn't seem a great deal. Obviously, it depends on the quality, grade, size of the satellite hugely. But it doesn't seem a great deal in particular. Also, on the high definition images, I did see an interesting GIF, if you like, basically, of the difference between their satellites and the satellites people are currently using. And you can see clearly, you can see these 3 huge jets on the GIF, and then it swipes to the Palantir one. You can actually see there's 3 tiny fighter jets by the side of it. And they were saying that that is the difference. The level of detail is obviously for 4 countries like that. That's the problem, which Jordan was saying. It likely it could be highly regulated in the future because companies will just be countries will just be spying on each other using the tech. But will then countries pay big money for contracts? So
yeah, that could really, also be.
Yeah, from a selfish stock point of view, you think, oh, brilliant. If all the countries are buying it, then really they're going to get rich off it.
Yeah, I think they'll we'll see a nice sort of similarity with Palantir, because they're very, very similar, and I think once ARK Invest get their space ETF, for me this is the first on the list. But it's just like you said, the not the contracts, but how much you can go into it and what you can actually view. A lot of it will be private, and that's obviously something we won't know about. But the public sector, I can see a nice response to. It's just hard not to overhype this one. We've got stuff like, which we saw as CCIV, where it was way overhyped and overvalued, and instead of it being like 12 million, this is for CCIV, 12 to 15 million, it came into 24 million as a valuation, and the stock I think went down, I think it was at 30%. And obviously we sold at 55. Not only was the valuation too high, but it was too hyped. So for me, with BlackSky and people reacting with Cathie Woods and Palantir, I think we just need to keep our eye on the stock. But I think, again, anything under 14 as a SPAC play, I think not safe, but I think you've got in at a very, very good price.
Yeah, that's it. I think it's got a long way to go, obviously, before being a CCIV, because that was pretty crazy. People I know who don't invest in stocks were just finding a way to purchase into CCIV because they'd heard about it. It was bizarre, really. It was almost like they just marketed it on Facebook or something like that for people to invest in.